Welcome to Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins. Let's Get Into It is a safe space to have real conversations that are meant to uplift, encourage, and let you know you are not the only one dealing with life. Each episode of Let's Get Into It is designed to provide illuminating and thought-provoking information on a variety of topics. In fact, no topic is off limit. If you would like to see a topic discussed, please feel free to make a recommendation. My special guest and I will have a great time discussing topics that the mainstream media wouldn't dare discuss. We will bring these conversations to you with an open mind, respectfully, from different perspectives, and most importantly, with love. Thank you for joining me and my special guest. Now, let's get into it. Hello, hello, hello. I am Sherelle Higgins. I am the host of Let's Get Into It, and this is Let's Get Into It Real Quick. So the first thing I want to tell you is hot off the presses. It just came out at 6:10. Is that the judge in Massachusetts is allowing the administration to go forward with the deferred resignation program. And the reason he cited is because he said that the union lacked standing and that they didn't have a direct stake in it, and therefore they could not challenge it, even though the union represent employees. And so I guess employees would have to get together to do a class action lawsuit. And one way of thinking about this is that if let's say somebody put in for this program and at some point they decide not to pay the employees, then that is going to impact individual employees and not so much the union organization. And so this is not good news. Of course, to do a class action lawsuit, it costs money. And so if people are going to be without jobs and being able to pay for a class action lawsuit, I don't know how that would work out. However, the judge lifted the injunction and said that the administration can go forward with the deferred resignation program. So I wanted to tell you all about that first because that just came out. And then I wanted to shift over and talk about the administration's implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency Workforce Optimization Initiative. And so what this initiative is that it is aiming to restore accountability to the American public. And so that's what it says. And what it's talking about is reforming the federal workforce to maximize efficiency and productivity. And in this, it has a hiring ratio. So for those people who submitted that they would resign, thinking that they would have an opportunity to come back later, later may not never come. Because under the hiring ratio, for all agencies except for the IRS, law enforcement, public safety, and immigration people. For every 4 people that walk out the door, the agency will only be able to hire 1. Let me say that again. So for every 4 people who walk out the door, the agency will only be able to hire 1. And in order to hire that 1, the agency head has to develop a data-driven plan in conjunction with DOGE's team lead. So each agency has a DOGE team lead. And the agency head has to work with the DOGE team lead to develop this data-driven plan so that they can then report up to Elon Musk once a month on what the numbers are looking like. It says that the agency cannot fill any vacancies for career appointments. And you have a career appointment once you have 3 years and you move from career conditional to career. And so they cannot fill any career appointments unless they consult with their Doge team lead. Um, and if the Doge team lead decides that the agency should not fill that vacancy, then the agency shall not do so unless the agency head says otherwise. And so they're going to be working close together to decide which positions will be filled. In addition to that, um, it is also saying that the agency shall promptly undertake preparations to initiate large scale reductions in force. If you have not seen my video on reductions in force, I highly recommend that you check it out. You can check it out on YouTube at Sherelle Higgins 123, or you can check it out on my Facebook page. But I highly recommend you take a look at that. So they are preparing to initiate large scale reductions in force. And it says it's going to be consistent with applicable laws. However, it's talking about immediately separating temporary employees and reemployed annuitants. Um, so, for those who responded that they were going to retire, thinking at some point you may be able to come back as a reemployed annuitant, that's probably not going to happen either. And it says all offices that perform functions not mandated by law or statute shall be prioritized in a RIF. So I need you to look at the type of work that you do. And if it is not mandated by law that you do that work or the agency does that work, then you are probably going to be impacted by a reduction in force. It sounds like to me that they are planning to RIF most federal employees. So it's going to depend on the type of work that you do and the type of programs that you work on. It says that the offices that perform functions not mandated by law, including all agency diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, all agency initiatives, components, or operations that the administration suspends or closes. And so when I read that, I immediately thought about USAID employees. They took a major hit. And so they are planning to RIF mostly that entire agency. However, it says all components and employees performing functions who are not typically designated as essential during a lapse in appropriations will be RIFed. So if you have been working for the federal sector for quite a while and you have experienced the times when Congress doesn't pass a budget and government workers were sent home for shutdown, then you are probably going to be RIFed. If you were not designated as the person who still had to work during that shutdown. Now, what's interesting to me is that I was always essential. And when I think about the number of people who were designated as essential in the organizations that I worked for, there were only like maybe 3 or 4 people designated as essential. And that was probably out of like Well, maybe it was 5 or 6 people, but out of like 100 people. And so I don't know how the government intends to operate with such a skeleton staff. So, think about whether or not you were designated as essential, doing any lapse in appropriations, and you can make a decision about where you probably stand. Also, it says within 30 days of the date of this order, which was yesterday, OPM shall initiate a rulemaking that proposes to revise 5 CFR 731.202 to include additional suitability criteria. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And that includes failure to comply with generally applicable legal obligations, including timely filing of tax returns. So if you are not filing your tax returns, they are coming for you. If you are not doing it timely, they are coming for you. Failure to comply with any provisions that will preclude regular federal service, including citizenship requirements. And so most federal jobs, you have to be a citizen. And so that's not alarming to me. There were some really strict exceptions to that. But it sounds like they are getting rid of the non-citizen hiring of non-citizens. Again, it's not a lot of people we're talking about. Refusal to certify compliance with any applicable non-disclosure obligations, and failure to adhere to those compliance obligations in the course of federal employment. And so, non disclosure obligations. Um, if you have to fill out the 450, I think it is, um, disclosing your assets and disclosing what you have to ensure that you don't have any conflicts of interest, then that's what they're talking about. And so they want to make sure that you are disclosing those obligations, and any failure to do so will result in termination from federal employment. Theft or misuse of government resources and equipment, or negligent loss of material, government resources, and equipment. That's not anything new. We typically don't fire you for that. We will write you up and give you, a second, maybe even a third chance, depending on the agency you work for and what it is that you misused. But now they are tightening the reins on misuse. So I would highly advise that you not use the government equipment for anything personal. Most agencies had it where you could use it for limited use. But I recommend going forward that you don't use the government equipment for anything that's not government work related. It also says that the agencies have to develop a reorganization plan, and that plan within 30 days of yesterday. Agency heads shall submit to the director of the Office of Management and Budget a report that identifies any statutes that establish the agency or subcomponents of the agency. The report shall discuss whether the agency or any of its subcomponents should be eliminated or consolidated. And so, one of the things that come to mind for me when I'm thinking about the reorganization plan, whether it should be eliminated or consolidated, is I know that the Federal Trade Commission and the Antitrust Division at the Department of Justice have similar missions. And so it would seem like to me that that would be one of those consolidations. And so they have to, by law, ensure that the consumers are not being taken advantage of, and that the big businesses are not having monopolies. And so they are going to be looking at the entire agency across the board and making some recommendations within the next 30 days on what can be eliminated and what should be consolidated. Also, within 240 days, as of yesterday, the Doge administrator, Elon Musk, shall submit a report to the president regarding implementation of this order, including a recommendation as to whether any of its provisions should be extended, modified, or terminated. And so, again, they have tall orders um, to adhere to in quick fashion. Now, quick is relative, right? You can't run a riff quickly because I can tell you that from my experience and just since January 20th, with all of the questions that I've been fielding for people, um, agencies do not have their stuff together. I recommend you have your documents, you keep them, and you document every conversation that you have or somebody have with you concerning anything around what's happening, because you never know if you're going to need it. I teach leadership classes, and the first thing I tell them is document, document, document. And so I am going to pass that on to you. You should be documenting. Um, and if anybody is encouraging you to take this program, if anybody is putting pressure on you to do so, I suggest you document it. I suggest you check your EOPF, your electronic official personnel file. Make sure all of your records are accurate. Go over it with a fine tooth comb because I promise you, people have misplaced things and it may not be in your personnel file. Also, you want to check your dates, make sure those are accurate. You want to make sure that your performance appraisals are in your electronic personnel file for the last 3 years. I know people have been asking, how do they get it in there if it's not? Go to your HR people and talk to them and ask them to ensure that it is uploaded into whatever electronic performance management system that your agency may be using. So you want to make sure that you are covering yourself as best as possible. And the rifts apparently are coming. I don't know, again, how the agencies are going to operate on a skeleton crew because most employees are not designated as essential during a lapse in appropriations. And so I don't know how they're going to operate. And then when you start talking about or thinking about, um, the 4-to-1 ratio for hiring, and you're talking about hiring people who lack the knowledge, the skills, and the ability to run the government, we can get ready for chaos. It will impact us all in some shape, form, or fashion. If it doesn't impact you directly, it will impact somebody you know. So make sure you have all of your things in order and whatever. And I know your HR people are swamped. I know that they are, in the same situation that you're in, and they don't know what they can say, what they can't say, but don't let them off the hook. Make sure your stuff is done. Because if you ask one time and it doesn't get done, that's because somebody else has been calling them 25 different times asking about their stuff and they trying to get that person's done. So you need to be persistent in making sure that your records are accurate and everything is in there. Again, when it comes to a riff, it's going to be a lot of bumping and retreating happening on the riff registry. And so, don't I won't say don't panic yet, because, like I said, the agencies are going to have to get everything in order to run a RIF and for the RIF to be legally defensible. If you are RIFed, you will have some appeal rights with the Merit Systems Protection Board. And so you want to make sure you understand how the RIF works and how you will be impacted by this RIF. Because you at some point may have to uh, get legal counsel and kind of help them explain how this impacted you disproportionately or unfairly, or it was not within the law of how a RIF is supposed to be ran. Do not rely on misinformation. Don't do it. Make sure you educate yourself. I'm going to do my part to ensure that I continue to educate you throughout this process, and hopefully you will be better prepared for what may come your way. So, in this optimization, it basically says nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department, agency, or head. Um, the functions of the director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. The order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. Let me read that again for those who are thinking about or who have already said that they were going to resign or retire under the deferred resignation program. This is the out. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. We know March 14th is quickly approaching. And so I know some of the earlier communication said that if the government shut down due to a lapse, that those people who took the deferred resignation program will be paid. This is the out. And so and let's just say the government doesn't shut down. Let's just say that Congress, who has the authority to obligate money to the executive branch agencies, let's say they severely cut the agency's budgets because they are anticipating this RIF to happen and people getting off the rolls. If they severely cut the agency's budget, I doubt very seriously that they are going to stand by that agreement that I went over that says that they were going to pay people who took the deferred resignation program. So, again, if you said that, you took a huge risk, um, and you may or may not get paid. So that's one of their outs. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantial or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity. Look, they use the word equity. I thought we was getting rid of equity. By any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. And so that's what the workforce optimization initiative is. And I want to make sure that you stay informed on what's going on in real time so that you have enough time to absorb it, process it, think about how it's going to impact you and your family or those that you love, and have an opportunity to ask me any questions that you may have. Um, and so I am willing to field questions at this point. If anybody has any questions, you could drop them in the chat. If you're on Facebook, I could see them in real time. Um, Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. I'm sure this is going to get hot and heavy over the next few days or the next few weeks. And so I will continue to come to you live and get into it real quick. So, in case I have some slow typers, I'm going to give it a second. before I end this live, just to make sure that people have an opportunity who have a question to ask the question. So get ready for the ride. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be a fast one. It's going to be a hard one. And so those who are, if you're on a temporary appointment not to exceed a year, or you have just about 14 months, then that's one thing you can probably expect that they are going to be moving forward with a termination. Also, if you are a re-employed annuitant, they are coming after you first. So those people who retired from the government and then decided for whatever reasons that they was going to come back into the government and work some more, those are your re-employed annuitants, and they are coming after you. Also, I have seen on social media a lot of people talking about the return to work mandate. I've also seen some reports about GSA being directed to terminate the leases for a lot of the federal buildings. And so to me, that's an oxymoron. And we already know that in order to come to work, you have to have some place to come to. I also saw a story about people going into the office and they didn't have anywhere to sit. And so they were setting them up in the hallways, and some people were even working from their cars. I cannot tell you what to do, but if it was me, I would have just went home, because there's no way I'm going to work and work in my car. That just doesn't make any sense. And so they are going to, and also a report came out, I think it was today, about the Department of Education canceled all of its contracts. So they are moving fast to eliminate the Department of Education. And I know that a lot of our schools, public school systems rely on funding from the Department of Education. And so those of you who have kids still in the public school systems, your child will be impacted by the lack of funds, because of obviously the way that they pay the teachers, the state and local governments cannot afford to provide that funding. And so it's going to severely impact our kids' ability to be able to be educated. Also, it's so much going on. I'm trying to pick and choose, what it is that you really need to know, but I want you to stay current, but don't get absorbed into all of this that's going on. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I hope you were able to have some laughs and some fun for Super Bowl Sunday, and just kind of decompress for a minute, because it's getting ready to get real. So thank you all for joining me. I will be back soon. Hope you can tune in, share the video, follow me on social media. I appreciate you all support, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great night. Thank you for joining and participating in Let's Get Into It. I want to thank my special guest for being brave enough to get into it. Without you, these conversations cannot happen. Remember, different viewpoints, respect, and love are the foundations of Let's Get Into It. If there's a topic you think I should discuss, drop me a recommendation. If you're interested in being my special guest, let me know, because we can and will get into it. Have a great day on purpose, and I look forward to your continued engagement and support as we get into it.